Hello everyone, how are we doing today? And welcome to today's video. So today we're going to go on from pedigree analysis, and now we're going to be talking about one other way or two other ways we can study human genetics, and that's looking at twin and adoption studies. So this is all kind of comes down to nature versus nurture. So is something due to the genetic effects of those genes expressing that phenotype? Is there an environmental effect at play for that final phenotype? So first here, I want to talk about twin studies today. So these are used to determine genetic versus environmental influences on a character. So let's say something like skin color. Skin color, of course, is multifactorial. It's both genetic and environmental. So you have a genetic basis for your skin color, but then also if you're in an area where you go out in more sunlight, your skin will be darker. So that would be an example of environmental influence. So just as a little intro to get into this. Now, first, I want to talk about the difference between monozygotic twins and dizygotic twins. So monozygotic is one zygote. These are identical twins. Whereas dizygotic, two zygotes, are non-identical or fraternal twins. Dizygotic twins are, roughly 50% similar to each other, whereas identical twins, these ones are 100% similar. The only differences are some various mutations that could arise throughout their lives. So if two phenotypes are 100% the same between two monozygotic twins, that tells you it's a genetic influence on that phenotype, most likely. And we'll talk about that a little bit more coming up today in something called the concordance percent. Okay, but just to go over monozygotic and dizygotic here again. So remember, monozygotic are the identical twins. So sperm fertilizes one egg, and then early on, these first two cells here separate into two new cells. So one egg is fertilized, so one zygote. And then these two develop the same genes in each of them, and they share the placenta. Whereas fraternal or dizygotic, a separate sperm and a separate egg. So you have two fertilization events. They both develop separately and with separate placentas. But remember, these are 100% identical, or these are 50% identical. So still very close for each one. So we can compare fraternal and monozygotic twins. There's an astronaut study, Chris Kelly, if you want to look him up. He had a twin, and he was an astronaut. He went up to the space station for a long amount of time. They actually studied different gene expression changes from being in microgravity for a long period of time compared to his twin on Earth. I forget the exact specifics of which genes were upregulated and downregulated, but they did find some differences that were induced by microgravity. So certain epigenetic changes that occurred in the twin that didn't occur in the other twin because of the environment he was in. So kind of neat. And so when they look at those studies, they look at something called a concordance. So concordance, if you're in concordance with someone, you're in agreement. So it's the percent of twin pairs that are concordant. Both twins have the same trait. So if they both express, the same hair color, they are concordant, 100%. Yes, hair color can have some environmental influences if you dye it, but without dyeing your hair, it has a high concordance percent. They are in agreement. It's what the genes say they should do. So we can compare these. So if the monoconcordates, so monozygotic, I abbreviated here. So monozygotic concordance is equal to 100%. That means they are in agreement, and it is greater than the dizygotic concordance. So when we look at tables, I'll show this example coming up from a paper. Compare monozygotic concordance to dizygotic concordance with various twin studies. So if the monoconcordance is close to 100% and it's greater than the diconcordance, then we know it's genetic factors alone influencing that genotype or phenotype. Now, if the monoconcordance is equal to the diconcordance, so, pretty much dizygotic twins are equal to, so identical twins are equal to non-identical twins, that means it's environmental factors that are the highest at play. And I'll show an example of that one coming up in this table too. And then if 100%, so the total is greater than the monoconcordance, and it's greater than the dizygotic concordance. And like this is typically, majority of things, it's genetics and environmental factors at play. So now let's look at this little table here, looking at twin concordance rates for endocrine disorders. So this is just from a twins in endocrinology paper I found, had a nice little concordance table in it. So I decided to use it here as well. So again, this is looking at endocrine disorders, which are different, hormones that are going through your body. So here it's showing the monozygotic percentage, and here it's showing the dizygotic percentage. So in the first one here, we see, a 60 to 70 concordance for type 1 diabetes and 10 to 15% for the dizygotic concordance. So this one up here, you could say it's more of the genetic factors at play for these ones. Whereas down here, look at osteoporotic fractures. So this is, breaking your bones. Both of these are very, very low. So if they're very, very low and they're equal to each other, not necessarily very low, but they're equal to each other, that tells you environmental factors are at play. So think of breaking your bones. That's very, thinking about like genetics can play a role in that a little bit, but it's mostly, from falling. And then I'm not going to look at too much more in this table. I just wanted to show those ones, but many of these, so like these ones here, what's one I want to pick out here? So Graves' disease, a 30 to 35%. It's not a high percent, so it's not, guaranteed from one twin to another. So that doesn't say it's completely genetic. There's a small part of the dizygotic that get it too. So that's genetics and environments are at play for many of these. So like obesity, even though this number is high, this number is still pretty high over here as well. Alrighty. So those are twin studies. So twin studies, whenever you're reading about twin studies, they'll break it down with this concordance percent, comparing monoconcordance with diconcordance. So another way we do human genetic studies are with adoption studies. So why would these be important? Think about adoption studies. So we compare nature versus nurture. So if you take that child away from their genetic parents and raise them in a different environment, how much different will they be from the parents? All right, so that would tell you, is environment more at play? So if they're more similar to the biological parents while being raised by the adoptive parents, that tells you it's genetics at play. If they're more similar to the adoptive parents than the biological parents, that tells you the environment is more at play. So the example I wanted to show here is BMI. So I'll fill in these two tables here, and this table right here, these are the biological parents, and these are the adoptive parents. And then down here, this is the adoptee weight class. So let's say the adoptee weight class, is thin. And so if we think about this, so we're comparing the adopted children with their biological parents. So this is the BMI of parents over here. Let's say, the BMI of the father is here. The BMI of the mother is here. The adoptee weight class is then thin. And as the BMI increases here, so as the biological father's BMI increases, the adoptee weight class also increases. So this would be the father right here. And then the mother, you can kind of do the similar figure here. So as the mother's weight increases of the biological parent, then the child's weight can increase as with the biological parent for the mother as well. Now let's compare the BMI of adoptive parents with the adoptee weight class. So here, let's say the BMI of the adopted father is very high, but then the adoptee weight class doesn't match. So it's a little bit different. Pretty much it can be, it can vary, but a little bit more opposite of a trend here. So this one would be the father. And then the mother, you might see just something, something else. Whereas if the mother has, low BMI, then, the child is thinner, but then up here it doesn't correlate anymore. So if the mother has a, high BMI, the child could still be obese. So what does this figure tell us now? So what's the conclusion of this figure? genetic factors alone, or genetic factors, not alone, because of course we're talking about BMI and obesity here. So of course environment plays a role. If the adopted parents are feeding the children more and more and more, they're gonna have a chance of being more obese, of course. And so it's not just genetic factors, but in this data, genetic factors are the bigger influence on BMI. I just don't want you to have the take-home message from this little example here being that genetic factors are the only thing that influence BMI. Of course, they don't. But think about, genetic factors when it comes to BMI, and, increased metabolism, things like that, thyroid functioning, higher and things like that, all have a genetic basis to it. So yeah, genetic factors do influence BMI, but also the environment influences BMI a little bit. It's just this data here comparing biological parents and adopted parents with the adoptee weight class. There is a correlation between the biological parents and the adopted and the genetic children. All right, short little video today. Just wanted to keep this one concise to keep the twin studies and the adoption studies together. So yeah, that's all I have for this one. And I have one more video left in this unit, and that one will be published here soon as well. So thank you for hanging out. I hope you enjoyed this little one, and I will see you all next time, and I hope you all have a great day, and bye-bye.